Welcome to Cycling Fashion Week, the only global podcast purely considered with cycling from an aesthetic and superficial point of view. I am your host, Alex. This week, we have a very special interview with former Canadian road champion and Vélo Cartel owner, Bruno Langlois. He's going to be coming on the podcast to talk to us about his cycling career and about the shop / cafe / training center that he opened a few years ago in Quebec City. Joined this week by my regular co-host Warren and a repeat, very special guest on the podcast today, Lily Hansen-Gillis, cycling writer and journalist. We do not have any Tony this week. He is on the injured list. So we're going to roll just with the three of us this week. Lily and Warren, how is it going?
It's going well. I just finished up cross season, 6 weeks of racing. So in a way, I'm glad to be done because I'm kind of tired. But at the same time, it's a little sad.
Yeah, it is getting too cold for cross here for a lot of riding. Actually, it was under zero today. We discussed it with Harry last episode. The old Spanish riders, when it's below 20 degrees, they're in their full winter gear. To me, like the -5 degrees is where I start to not really be interested in running outside, and that's where we are right now.
Yeah, I was actually trying to determine what my cutoff this year is going to be, and I'm going to say probably about -5 too, or feels like -5. I think for me that's it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, that's when, or like La Passione would say, it's not worth the effort. So that's where I go to Zwift. Before we go into our regular segments, we had a very interesting DM from someone responding to Warren throwing Assos guy in the canal a few episodes ago, or last episode,
Uh-oh.
actually. You'll recall that Assos guy is this guy from the, I would say, early 2010s with spiky black hair and an extremely ripped physique, taking weird poses to model Assos gear. And Warren threw Assos guy in the canal. He also threw the entire brand into the canal. And this is what this person was responding to. And I'll just read the DM and maybe we'll discuss it after because I think it's an important message. So the person says, ugh, Assos is so complicated. Firstly, conceptual, flashy neon Assos guy who rides without a helmet needs to fuck right off. But from an actual minimalist style, technical, and price perspective, I really think y'all need to reconsider and look at it maybe as almost a normcore thing. I'm no diehard, but I can say that their stuff is what I reach for first and holds up way better than Panorama Studios and crashes and over time. I've got tons of Panorama and Rafa, and they are also up there for me, but for comfort, minimalism, and price point, nothing can really fuck with Assos, probably, or whatever line has replaced it. I'm quite certain I own that insane winter jacket, but from 2 seasons ago. It's basically an SR71 as a cycling jacket, and while I'll admit I didn't pay full price for it, it's the discreet, if you know, roadside flex that counts. So there's a lot to unpack here. You'll see I didn't censor or rephrase a lot of the wording here, but what do you think about that?
I'm going to be brief because I've already said my piece on Assos last episode, and this guy hasn't changed my mind. Like the fact that he thinks wearing Assos is any kind of flex is just ridiculous because I think you look stupid, as I covered before. I get his argument and I appreciate him making it, but he's wrong.
So Warren, before I pass it over to Lily for a comment on this, because Lily is an Assos gear owner, so I want to hear from Lily on this. But I just want to point something out. You assume that person writing the DM was a man. It was in fact a woman. And I think that is an important precision here because we get a female perspective on Assos. And I find that her comment was very nuanced and very sophisticated, like really getting to the point of the essence of what Assos is. So I just wanted to point out that DM was from a woman.
Thank you. She's wrong.
So I can't. Is it ASOS or ASOS?
I think Assos. I don't know.
I never know how to pronounce it. That is the first like piece of expensive kit I owned. I was wearing very, very cheap stuff before that, like stuff that I found at like Winners or something. But there was a fire at the 11 in Toronto, and they had to sell their stuff off to some insurance thing. And basically, at this random place in Etobicoke, they were selling Assos for extremely cheap. So I was able to come about some expensive cycling gear for relatively cheaper than it normally is. And the bibs that I got from them, I still have today. I think they're like finally like the chamois has compressed a bit, but they never like they held up for like a very long time, like very good quality. That being said, I do agree like aesthetically like the houndstooth thing is very, I mean, yeah, it's almost like a normcore thing. That's a really good point that she made. Like almost maybe, but it still has this kind of like Euro kind of like a little bit, you know, pure roady connotation, which I don't know if we're trying to move away from that in North America right now, but a plain black jersey and plain black bibs, like it's good quality for sure. Yeah, I think I just completely agree with that comment, essentially.
It's very complicated. Like it's not a. I agree. There's things that are really easily sent into the canal, but this one is tough. And so I replied to her message and I said, "Thank you for your excellent, nuanced, complex, and sophisticated take, which it is. So shows that our listeners are complex, nuanced, and sophisticated." And then she then said, "Yeah." And the other thing I wanted to say about Asos is, the gear from a few years ago, paradoxically, when Assos guy was still around, he's gone. At this point, I think he's in the canal. Paradoxically, that gear was actually better. And she says, they were even like blacking out the logos back then. It was this really kind of stealth thing. So it wasn't really about showing off the brand. It was just, here's a black kit that costs a lot of money, and I'm cool. That was kind of what it was. And she seems to think that the newer stuff is a bit less cool somehow.
They were really going for like an if you know you know sort of thing, because I remember they had like their top of the line, then they had their like top of the line stuff, and they looked almost exactly the same except there was like a gold band around the logo for the like most expensive stuff. So it's like if you knew that was the most expensive one, then like you're like, oh, that person paid the most for those. But also one thing to note before we move on is that they call the crotch in one of their men's bibs the cuckoo penthouse, which I think is the most hilarious thing in the world.
I've changed my mind. I've totally changed my mind. I love Assos.
Okay, so moving on to new releases, the one thing that caught our eye in the last few weeks is definitely a favorite brand of Cycling Fashion Week. It's a smaller brand from the United Kingdom called Albion. So they've been around for a little while there, and we've followed their work for some time. We've worn it, we've tried it. And so they released their fall winter to 2021 all road collection. Some of the products that were released there are just kind of new colors of existing products, but in other cases they're entirely new products. And I'll let Warren talk about it a little bit.
If our listeners remember, both Tony and I ranked Albion as our number one top kit brand. So I don't think it's gonna surprise our listeners that I am a fan of this. So this collection it's really just a fall winter collection. So you've got your long sleeve jerseys, you've got an insulated gilet, you've got a rain jacket, two different kinds of insulated jackets actually. One is an ultralight. They've introduced some new 3-season tights, a long sleeve base layer. They've got their burner, which is like this piece of insulated material meant to stuff in the front of your jersey if you're descending down mountains. They got some new caps, some wool caps, and this weird little ultralight backpack thing, which I don't know too much about. There's a lot of new colors. I do want to say I actually own a number of things. As I said, I have a long sleeve jersey from them. I also have their insulated gilet from, I think I bought a year or two ago, and it's one of my favorite cycling products. I use it as soon as the temperature starts to dip, and it can wear it like into the start of the winter. So shout out to the insulated gilet 3.0. The palette I like the palette they've got. They've got some, I want to say, like earth tones, and I'm saying that because some of the colors are called earth red or moss green. So yeah, overall, I am a pretty big fan of this collection. I think I mentioned when I talked about our top 5 kit brands that I was going to buy something from it. I have not yet, but I probably will. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of this, especially this earth red color. I'm not wild about the moss green color because I feel like I've seen a couple brands experimenting with that lately, and just not for me. But I don't have much to add. I'm a big fan of it.
And they've got more products that they're launching in the next few weeks. They have this Zoa collection or product that they're going to launch, which they've been talking about on their Instagram, which has this Pertex fabric and the Primaloft insulation. So they're going to drop some new stuff that's kind of winter gear in the next few weeks. Will be really interesting. What I do like about Albion in general, and Warren, I think you've done a good job describing the earth tones. Great color palette. I think it's fantastic overall. What I like about them too, as part of their brand story or their aesthetics as well, is they sort of really know where they're from. They're very deeply British, and they say, look, we make cycling gear for British weather. It gets kind of cold, damp, and rainy, and that's what they specialize in. And I like when a brand has a good story to tell and they know where they're from. And Albion doesn't try to act like they're from another place in the world or they're doing something else. They're very clearly British, and they are happy to be British, and that's what they make, and they make it very well. The other thing I want to say that on their Instagram account or on their website, when you look at the collection, the shots that they've taken, the photography is absolutely stunning. I don't know where they took those photos. Could be Wales or it could be the north of England overall, but it's truly beautiful stuff, and it really does great justice, I think, to the products that they are selling. So
I just want to note that I think they do, just looking through this collection, I like their little products that aren't necessarily the typical thing that a cycling brand would sell. Like for like the burner, for example, really cool
Hmm.
concept. But I also will say, Warren, you kind of brushed over these ultralight backpacks. I
Hmm.
think that's a great idea. I have this packable backpack from IKEA that is probably about 6 times bigger than this that I can just fit in a jersey pocket, and I bring it sometimes when I'm going places, and it's incredibly helpful. Like you can only fit so much in a musette, but
Okay.
and if you're going longer, yeah.
That's fair. I'm not actually a very big fan of musettes, so yeah, I wasn't brushing over it because it was more just like I don't have one. But yeah, totally hear you and can totally see where it would come in handy. This actually might be useful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That burner thing, as you said, yeah, I think that's a cool concept. But being that I live in Ontario, Canada, where as Alex likes to point out, there's about 5 meters of elevation for every 200 kilometers I ride. I have no real need to buy one of those, but I have seen some reviews. I think Cycling Tips and some other websites covered it and were favorable. So it does seem like an actual useful thing. Basically, I'm going to spend my money on something from here.
Should get the listeners to vote on what you should buy.
Ooh, good idea. Check our Instagram account.
help Warren part with his money. Okay, so this week we have a very special guest on the podcast. Probably actually the fastest ever cyclist to join this podcast here on Cycling Fashion Week. His name is Bruno Langlois. He is the owner of Vélo Cartel, which is a really cool. I guess he would describe it better than I could, but it's a shop, it's a training center, it's a cafe, it's a meeting place for cyclists. Located in beautiful Quebec City. He is also a former Canadian road champion. So pretty significant achievement there. Bruno became the Canadian champion at the age of 37, so late in his career. In terms of his pro career, Bruno rode for many different teams during his career, going from Garneau Québécois to 5 Hour Energy to Spider Tech and a few other teams, and has participated in a variety of pro continental and as well as world tour races over his career. So we're very happy that he joins us on the program. Bruno, welcome to Cycling Fashion Week.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
The pleasure is ours. Bruno, before we talk about your shop, about Vélo Cartel, can you tell us a little bit about your career as a pro cyclist and what kind of led you to decide to open Vélo Cartel later after your cycling career?
I start cycling pretty late, like if I compare like most of the people like start young because their parents were cyclists and they got, pushed into the sports. This is not my case. I'm coming more for a background of skateboarder and snowboarding. So I kind of get in cycling like kind of out of nowhere, to be honest. But I started at the age of like 18. So my first year of racing was second year of junior. So I was pretty strong, but I didn't know what I was doing on the bike. So I really found like a passion in it because I was pushing myself and make like the discipline that this sport gave me in my life was like super important for me. So slowly I did like a national team, Quebec team, then national team. Then at the same time I was at university doing my degree in kinesiology because I wanted my parents was like school is really important, but I didn't really like school. I decided to go for kinesiology, which is like learning about training, biomechanic, physiology and stuff. So I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna learn stuff and I'm gonna apply to myself. So I'm gonna be a better cyclist. So that's what motivate me to stay in school. And I knew it was really important for my family, like to not just race my bike. So because you never know what's gonna happen, a crash or even like you don't like cycling is not permanent. It's like a sport, but then like after this you need to earn your life and work. So that's why I kept my word and I did my school. When I finished my degree, I was already like national team and I had like decent results. So I took a year off and I told myself I want to become pro. In 2005, I turned pro for a small team called Jittery Joe. Tim Johnson was my captain. He's the guy that like put me like kind of in because I was training with him in Bromont because he was like the boyfriend of Lynn Bessette, who was
Lynn
my friend
Bessette,
also. Yeah.
and who organizes that beautiful gravel race in
Exactly.
Beaumont.
So start pretty slow, but then after that, I kept racing. So from 2005 to I say 2018, I was like surfing on the pro status kind of thing. But like I really enjoy it doing it. That's a little bit my background of like becoming a pro. But it was a long process because I think I was not that good at the start, but I think I worked really hard to become like a Canadian champion at 37. Just prove that I like just I want to do cycling, and then 2 years after I stopped. I think like they just show you the commitment and the perseverance.
So that's what I find really interesting about your career, because you say you started at 18, which is late. Like these European kids, they start way earlier than that. And sometimes by 18 or 19, they start on the pro tour in some cases. But you started at 18 and you became Canadian champion at 37, which is also really late in your career to be Canadian champion. So how did it feel? Was it like the culmination of your career, all your efforts kind of happening unexpectedly late in your career? How did that feel?
Before that, in 2008, I finished second behind Christian Meyer, and then I finished third, fourth, fifth, eighth, seventh, 10th, 11th, but I never won it. So that year in 2016, the last few Ks were four guys, and I'm like, yeah, shit, again, I'm gonna finish second, third, or fourth because it was a sprint finish, and I don't sprint. Like it's probably like anybody out there can probably outsprint me. But then I managed to win. On some decision that I cannot turn at that speed. So I just kind of check in the corner, but I think that it was good call because everybody crashed except me. So in the last corner, I told myself, if they can turn at 75 k an hour in that corner, I can. So I just eased up a bit. I brake. I managed to like stay on my bike and I won the race, which is like for me was a really good satisfaction because I worked so hard to get that title, and then that year I told everybody I was about to retire. It was my last year. But then the fact that I won the jersey, I wanted to wear it one more year. So I extend my career for one more year just to wear that jersey proudly. And then yeah, it was like a really special moment for me to achieve that. There's no age to be a champion, if you work hard and you have a hard mental and you're passionate. I think it's everything is possible.
Well, it's an amazing story because you don't see that too often. Guys that start late and that win, such a big race late in their career. So it's pretty amazing story. So I want to steer the conversation towards your shop a little bit and towards cycling fashion and cycling style. And I guess when you were a pro, were you interested in how you looked on the bike and in kits and in cycling style in general, or were you purely focused on performance? You had no time or interest for this sort of stuff?
Yeah, always. Like, to be honest, before cycling, I was like watching like fashion magazines and stuff. Yeah, and like a little like funny fact is like I remember like my first like pro team, we received like bunch of clothing, and then we got those socks were like super low, like like low cut. Like I took my socks and I put them upside down, and I used scissors and I uncut like the stitches to make them like taller because I didn't like the short socks. So then I started to do that. And then I remember when I went to Tour de Beauce, some guys from Mercury team back in the day when Gord Fraser was racing for that team, like they start making fun of me because my socks were taller, And I just told them, I don't give a fuck what you thinking. 1 or 2 years later, like everybody was wearing taller socks. Not because of me, just like, I just did it because I thought it was like ugly. But then like, so I always like care about my style on the bike and my position on the bike. It's not fashion, but at same times is you need to go fast, but you also need to look professional. Like cycling is such a hard sport, probably the hardest sport. You need to look good when you suffer.
What's the ugliest kit you had to wear as a pro?
Well, it's a good question.
Because the thing about pros that seems to be really really difficult is when I follow a lot of pros on Instagram and they always wear the kit. It's like you always have to wear it, right? It's part of the team contract. Wherever you're riding, you have to wear the kit. So if it's a bad kit, you're stuck with it, and you kind of have to wear it all the time.
I think it's different when you're a team and where you're a individual. Like a team has sponsors, they want to be flashy sometimes. They want to stand out, of the bunch. Like the kid from 5 Hour Energy was super ugly, but at the same time, if my mom come to a race, she know like she really like easily pick my team, and like ugly is a word that is like hard to to justify.
So actually, I actually like the 5 Hour Energy kit. Is it the pink and yellow one that you had?
It's like a red and
Oh, it was the red one. Okay.
but I really like the one we did, like a special one for Tour of Alberta, that we had a camo. It was like a camo kit, but the camo pattern was like the logo of the 5 hour all over the place. So it was like a camo kit. It was like pretty good. When you're a team, I think more you flash, I think it's better. But when you're like a customer, you want to be like slick, nice clothing that you don't gonna get sick of it. It's like buying a car. If you buy a car bright orange, you might just like it for like 1 month and then you're sick of it. So it's a little bit like the same thing. Yeah, kit wise, the other kit, it was like pretty funny. It was like the my first pro team, we had like a white bibs, Jerry Joe's. We had like a white, super white, like full white. And the first day we got the kit, we went for a team ride and it was like pouring rain, so everybody came with a brown chamois.
Look, we're big fans of white bibs on this
Yeah.
podcast, but it has to be worn on a nice day. You can't wear that when it's
Yeah.
raining. Bruno, tell us about Vélo Cartel. So tell us about the inspiration behind the shop. What did you intend it to become versus what it became over time? So earlier I described it as a shop, cafe, training center, meeting place for cyclists. Tell us a little bit about Vélo Cartel.
Well, it was like a not that long process because we've only been 4 years now, I think. Goes pretty fast, but mainly like we start, well, I say we, but I started with like a training center because, from my background of like coach, and so my goal was to have a nice place so people can come and train and get nice workout. My goal was to be there to help them to progress and achieve their goals. And then like, so well, it would be nice to have like a little cafe, like when I have a double espresso before the training, and then chill out a bit. And then like, it would be nice to have like cool socks and like little like goodies. And then like, well, maybe we're gonna have some bikes, but we want some exotic brands. And then, well, like people come and their bikes are like not tuned up that much, or they need like, so we should have like a workshop. So it was like a slow progress, like a slow like building. But then I always had like in my mind do like a headquarter, like, okay, what a cyclist wants: good coffee, good training, nice clothes, best bikes, best mechanic. You want to be proud of the ride he has, the clothes he wears. You want to be part also of a community, like feel like he's part of something. So I was brainstorming, like when you start something, you're like, okay, I'm gonna start something, but what's the name of it? What's the logo? I want it to be different. I wanted to provoke a little bit with the name, and but also the name needs to mean something. So I said, well, we're a regroupment of people that have the same passion, and then we want to train, and we want to be working together to beat the competition, to beat the other team, to be the best. So when I look some definition and synonym, I say, oh, a cartel is a regroupment of people that fight against other to beat the competition, but they have the same goal, is to be part of something. And for my point of view, a cartel is like a peloton. That's why we decided, because I was not by myself, I like people with me, but we decided to call it Vélo Cartel. A cartel de vélo, de cycliste, like a cyclist cartel, which is like, if you want to be part of it, it's not just you buy a ticket and you're in. You need to prove some stuff, and it needs to be a little bit unique.
So I've been to Vélo Cartel a few times. I live in Montreal. This is in Quebec City. And by the way, our listeners should definitely follow Vélo Cartel on Instagram at Vélo Cartel. Beautiful Instagram account, great photos, and the account really showcases all the stuff that happens there at Vélo Cartel. And if you are in Quebec City, definitely do drop by. I think, as Bruno said, it has everything that a cyclist would wish for. Bruno, tell us about the brands that you carry on the clothing side at Vélo Cartel.
Mainly, like most of the brands, they are the one who approach us. They send us a message, or we like what you're doing. No, just like we like what you're doing. You're different, and like, let's say you're a strong brand, and you put your brand in a regular bike shop. There's like a ton of other brands around. Like us, we're like small space. When people go, they're gonna see, and then they like what we were showing. So. They contacted us, and then I'm talking like now, it's an example, but then I'm gonna use the easier one, is Panormal. We did a Zoom with them, and then I realized that the guy that was back in the day that was working for them in North America, I did some pro crit with him, so we got pretty like easy to contact, and then friendly with him. So he sent me some samples, and then we try it, and I really like the brand and the product. So we decide to commit with minimum quantity, and we start from there. And then we use the brand, we took picture, we build it, like the image, because I think nobody like knowing them. So I think we did a great job, like just building it. They recognize the work we did, so that's why they're friends, and they are like a partner, and then they want to work with us. So I came to visit them in Copenhagen. I was in Girona, but I just like extend my trip a little bit. So I meet everybody there, and it was like super nice, because we really like made a relationship much stronger after that. I think the strength of this brand and the other brand we have, they really work hard on the lifestyle. because I see it, people like when they wear the brand we have, they're proud of wearing it because like they feel like they're different, but they see also what those brand does, and they want to be part of it, you know.
Why do you think Panormal became so popular? I mean, they're one of the coolest brands out there at the moment. They're not a brand that you will find in any bike shop. They don't want that. They're definitely more niche in how they present themselves. But among people who look for, beautifully designed stuff, Panormal is pretty much recognized as one of the coolest brands right now. What do you think make them so big or made them so popular?
I think because the way they do things, the way they take their picture, their videos, their colors, they're pretty clean, they're pretty slick, they feel like they're badass, you know. So I think they got something that no other brands have.
On the and so it's interesting how you said as well the shop kind of started into something small. It was going to be a training center, but then you added coffee, then you added bikes, then you added clothes. It kind of snowballed into something bigger. And you guys carry some bike brands as well. Am I correct in saying that you guys have, is it Parley, BMC, and Aurum, Alberto Contador's new brand as well?
Yeah, we also have a bomb track, which is from Germany. So yeah, those are the principal brand we have at the moment.
I'm interested in Alberto Contador's brand, Aurum. I think they launched this year or last year, right? It's a fairly recent thing. Can you tell us a little bit about those bikes and like what's special about them?
Well, I'm riding it, so I'm riding the bike, and I really like it, to be honest. It's a super versatile bike, so it's like good for climbing. It's pretty stiff but comfortable. It's all around bike, super light. Why we work with them is because it's a niche brand, which is like built from Alberto and Ivan Basso, which is like we're probably my favorite Grand Tour rider. Yeah, we decided to work with them because they're a small company, but they make that's what made the difference. Because like example, yesterday I had a Zoom with them. We working on what we're gonna do in 2022. What's coming new? What's good? What we like? What we don't like? And stuff like that. So I don't think if you a retailer of like a super big brand, they're gonna Zoom every retailer and ask that, you know. So the goal is to work and build a relationship, you know. And that's what we do with all the brands we have, because they feel we are important for them, and we know that they are important for us. We're just not a number. It's like a long term relationship we want to build with those small brands, because we believe in that, because we are a small shop also, but we have the same goals, same focus, same passion.
And so you also run a coaching service and a training center at Vélo Cartel. You describe your background in kinesiology. What kind of cyclists do you think would benefit from having a structured training program with a coach like that in a training center organized like that?
Well, anybody, to be honest. For example, yesterday I was coaching my oldest client. She's like 74 years old. She have a pretty low FTP, you know, but she don't care because she have her own goals, and I respect this a lot. And I'm telling myself, when I'm gonna be 74 years old, I don't know if I'm gonna show up to a training center and put my bike on a trainer and do the workout, you know, and do my stretching after, and get some strength condition with our private coach, because she want to be in shape and stuff like that. So this is like super for me. It's as grateful as training someone that wants to go to the Olympic. It's hard because like we have an image of like, oh, I'm not good enough. I cannot go train at Velo Cartel because I'm not strong enough. But this is not the case, because everybody works our own potential. Like I said, like everybody benefit from structure training. When you come train to a center with your friends and you have a coach, you're gonna push a lot more than if you're alone in your basement or in your garage when you're with some other people, and you have 3 sets of 10 effort to do, and then after the second set, it's like, wow, I think I'm done. And then first thing you know, you look around and everybody start the third set, and you're like, shit, I'm gonna have to do it. So then you do it. Finally, you accomplish, and then you said, well, I'm proud of me, because if I was pretty sure I will like just crack and not be able, but then because the dynamic of the group makes you push more. It's like in a race. It's like when someone scream your name on the side of the climb, and you're cracking, and then you just push more because it just give you energy. So I think it's the strength of a training center.
It's true. It's true that it's easy to bail on the third set when you're alone at home, and there's no one
Very
to keep you honest
Yeah,
there. And if I'm
yeah.
still doing intervals when I'm 74, I'll be pretty happy. This actually reminds me, my bike is a Marinoni, and I got it made by Marinoni. And the day that I went to pick it up, Giuseppe Marinoni was there. It was in the afternoon, and he had just ridden like 75 kilometers in the morning. He was 82 years old at that time, so that's pretty awesome. I think when you're that old to be able to do that. Bruno, we're gonna wrap up the interview with a few rapid fire questions. So the concept is very simple. I give you a rapid fire question. There are two choices. You pick one of the two choices and you tell me why very quickly, and then we move on to the next question. So I'll start with the first one. Do you wear your socks over or under your leg warmers?
Over,
Why?
because under it's ugly.
Shoes, white or black?
Always white.
Socks, white or black?
Always white.
Okay, so my next question was going to be, is black shoes with white socks okay? But I understand that that's a no.
Never.
Never. Um, Steel or carbon?
Carbon.
Grand Prix cycliste de Montréal or Grand Prix cycliste de Québec?
Quebec.
Zwift or riding outside in the winter?
It depends the winter you're in. Like if it's like snowing, I'll say Zwift, but I will extend as much as possible in my riding outside.
Macchiato or cappuccino?
Double espresso, short.
Okay. Road or gravel?
That's a tough one.
It depends.
Gravel,
Dropped seat stays like BMC or regular seat stays like our room?
regular.
Okay, and last question. Well, actually, two questions, and this one you can expand a little bit. It doesn't have to be rapid fire, but what's the best place to ride for you in Quebec?
Parc de la Mauricie
So just north of Trois-Rivières.
is like brand new pavement, in and out. You can do easy ride, fast ride. If you get dropped, you just join back after. It's like climbs. I think is the best place you can ride, and there's not much cars.
Cool. And what about in the whole world? What's your favorite ride in the entire world?
Mallorca.
That makes sense. Looks beautiful over there. I've never been, but it looks awesome.
What is nice is with Mallorca is like the climbs are not too long, but they're close apart, so you can do a lot of like nice climbs, but they are like pretty close. Let's say in Girona, you have if you want to do like a super nice climb, you need to ride 2 hours or an hour and a half before the base of the climb, which is like okay when if you're a pro and you have to do 6 hour ride, but if you're like a regular person that want to ride this bike for 3 max 4 hour and you want to do it some nice climbs, I think Mallorca is one of the best place I rode in my life.
Perfect. All right. Well, Bruno, thank you very much for joining us on the program. So again, our listeners can follow Vélo Cartel on Instagram at Vélo Cartel. You can see all the stuff they do there. And if you do happen to go to Quebec City, which, as Bruno said, is a beautiful place to ride, make sure you drop by the shop. It is a truly awesome spot. So thanks very much again, Bruno, and talk to you soon, hopefully.
Thanks to you guys.
Take care.
Keep in touch. Take it easy.
Okay, next segment, Into the Canal, where we take a trend, a product, or anything from cycling that we absolutely hate and we throw it in the canal. Let's start with Lily. What do you got for us, Lily?
I'm throwing gravel bars into the canal. I think they look stupid. No, I mean, okay, like a lot of brands are selling bars with like a 25-degree flare. If Pro has one with 30 degrees. And that's just too much. It's too much flare. That's it. It's like pretty much a flat bar at that point, which is fine. Put a flat bar on your gravel bike. Like that's more fun than a flared bar in my opinion. And I'm pretty liberal with what I find like fine for handlebars. Like I rode on the Grail and with the double handlebars, the
Yeah,
Canyon.
Lily, I was going to ask you about that. As soon as you said gravel bars, the first thing that came to my mind is that double decker. I need your opinion. You're a
I like
respected
it. I think,
cycling journalist. Need your
it
opinion.
feels like a regular bar. Like it's not, and it does dampen the vibrations. It's better than the flared bars, in my opinion. Like, like
Ooh,
these
hot
the
take.
arguments for them, like what, like you're gonna be more stable when you're descending or whatever. Like, okay, the majority of people that are doing these gravel rides, and this is me included. I'm not like, I'm just saying the majority of people are gonna be in their tops. Like, what, you're trying to go faster? Oh yeah, you're gonna get aero when you're going faster. Like this is like a major aerodynamic disadvantage, and there is nothing that feels better than like being in the drops, being really tight and little and aerodynamic. Like that feels really good, and you cannot get that with flared out gravel bars. Also, just the association of like, no offense, if you're biking with this, that's fine, and if someone told you that it looks cool, that's also fine, because big gravel is totally a thing. They're selling like saddles and like gravel shoes and
Big
gravel
gravel.
bibs, gravel helmets, like big gravel is real.
First of all, it's not okay. I know Lily said it's okay, but it's not, because I agree with Lily. The over flared bars are ridiculous, and what's also ridiculous, and I kind of assume you were gonna add this into the grouping, but I'm gonna mention it, is the ridiculously wide handlebars. Like I think
Yeah.
Curve, the brand out of Australia, I forget the name of the bars, but there's something like, what are they, like 65 millimeters wide or something, and they've made them even wider. And then and part of the reason I think that's ridiculous is to add to big gravel is I also just saw they just released a newer narrow wide version of those bars. So they've made bars super wide and now they're bringing them back under the guise of it being a new product for you to buy.
Oh my
And
god.
that is big gravel in a
Uh,
nutshell.
it really is. It's like pretty much anything that you can put the word gravel on now. It's like, I'm sure they're gonna come out with gravel gels soon, but like I also like, yeah, and on that note, wide handlebars in general, as someone who I'm like, for a woman, I think I have pretty average, maybe even wider than average shoulders. I know so many women who have gotten into cycling and gotten bikes that fit them, and their handlebars are just way too wide. The difference that having handlebars that fit you makes is just like has made me hate wide bars so much, because I rode them for way too long and then I fixed it and I was like, my life feels better now. So that is a personal grievance, I will say, but I still think it looks bad. So
I agree with everything you said, Lily, except for your comments on the Canyon Grail bars. I think they are offensive to look at. They are revolting. They are so ugly. It's just
I know I'm in the
the
minority
complete
here, but
the complete lack of concern for aesthetics or harmony. It's absolutely ugly. It's awful. I just don't understand how someone can be happy to ride a bike that looks like that. So again, everything else you said, the rise of big gravel, I think it's a threat to free and democratic societies. Big gravel trying to sneak in with quasi mountain bike type products, and I think the wide bars, they're not mountain bikey, but they're in the same vein, in the same spirit. So yeah, that's a hard canal for me.
yeah, I will say one counterpoint to that. You can balance an entire medium coffee in between the two bars.
Oh,
So,
that
coffee stop, you got bike in one hand, coffee in one hand. Oh, both your hands are free now because you have two handlebars.
Have they launched gravel coffee yet?
or
It's
gravel
it's the
coffee
same as
holder.
coffee, but it's like really chill and really community minded, and yeah, it's just more relaxed coffee.
But it's $10 more.
Actually, speaking of gravel gels, mine isn't really a style one this week. It's more of a just thing I've noticed with cyclists, and it's about gels in particular. Actually, I'm just going to throw gels as a ride fueling source into the canal because, first of all, it's just like sugar junk and like carbs, and you can basically get that out of anything. You shouldn't be bothering with gels when you can literally just buy a little reusable container and fill it with either maple syrup or honey, and that's your gel. And you can get bigger size ones, you can get smaller size ones. So you could bring like the equivalent of like 4 or 5 gels in one little packet and just, take little hits at it as you go. You're not getting your hands all sticky when you bite it open and then try to put the wrapper back in your pocket so you're not littering. Yeah, gels are bad. Gels are in the canal. They never taste good, in my opinion. Maple syrup is amazing. It's pure sugar. I don't want to eat salted watermelon cola, whatever flavor. Gels are in the canal.
Maybe I'm not very sophisticated nutrition wise, and I definitely am not sophisticated because sometimes I just forget to have breakfast before I go on my ride and then bonk an hour later and wonder why. But instead of gels, like my strategy has generally been to stop in a convenience store and buy like Haribo gummy bears and
Oh
just
yeah.
take one every 10 minutes or every 5 minutes, and it's generally carried me on rides. I just don't really get the point of gels that are 4 times the cost or even more, I guess.
It's just expensive candy with salt on it.
Yeah, and it's not as good.
What other junk sugary foods do you guys like in lieu of gels?
I am a huge proponent of fuzzy peaches because they're not
Mhm.
too tart. But honestly, you can sometimes get at the convenience store, there's a little plastic cup full of mixed type of candy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if this is a thing everywhere, but I
Yeah.
tend to notice them in this area. And if it's like a nice summer day, just take one of your pockets, empty it out, put the cup in the pocket, and then you can just reach back and periodically get your candy without like fiddling around with anything. You got this like nice cup there that you could just use to pick your candy out of. I think that's like my favorite ride fuel. I can go for hours on that. It's great.
I'm a big pastry on rides guy. So I'll stop. When I ride in the country a lot, and when you go to these little villages, there's always like a boulangerie or a bakery. So I'd stop there and just kind of scope out what they have in the sweets section, and anything that has like chocolate or whatever, I'll go for that.
Yeah, I'm kind of both. Like I like good fuzzy peaches or just random sugar candy. That's a good option, and that's again part of the reason I was throwing gels in the canal. And then yeah, I also like pastry at a nice coffee stop. I'll occasionally get into a Slim Jim, which is pepperoni stick here and there if if it's a long hot one and I just want a lot of salt. But yeah, usually just any kind of sugar candy is kind of my go-to at a convenience store.
I'm still on the hunt for a vegetarian savory snack on a ride. It's not, I haven't found anything yet.
Okay, I'm gonna do my canal. I don't know. This might offend some people, but I have to do it. I'm gonna throw smart watches, connected smart watches that somehow track your performance. Like, don't want to name any brands, but I'll do it. Like a Garmin watch, using that as a bike computer to track your metrics, your performance. I'm going to throw that in the canal, and I'm also going to throw cyclists who are on their off day or who aren't training but who are still walking around with these smart watches to somehow like track their sleep or track their resting heart rate. I'm also going to throw that in the canal. I just think they look awful in general. The designs are terrible. I see Lily is laughing. She's wearing a watch. I can't tell what it
It's not a
is.
watch, it's a Whoop.
It's a Whoop.
Oh, it's
Oh, so
even
I'm also
worse.
throwing. I'm also That's even worse. I'm also throwing that in the canal. And yeah, so I just think they look awful in general. We had a very special guest a few weeks back. Prenton. We were discussing what kinds of watches you should wear on a ride, and I think the entire idea in a world where you can be connected anywhere with your phone or with your bike computer, the entire idea of watches initially was when you didn't have these things was to track just kind of what time it is, what can I get home in time for dinner after my ride. But now that you have all these things, you don't really need the watch unless you're riding without a computer. So your watch might as well be stylish. And these watches are generally pretty terrible to look at. And I'll pass it over to Lily because she's wearing a Whoop. Whoop is definitely in the canal for me. They've been advertising hard to me
Yeah.
on YouTube. Like they, I'm their target market. Late 30s, somehow professional guy who rides a bike, dad, and they've been force feeding me that awful Ted King ad where he's riding gravel in Vermont, and he's like, I always want to track my performance as a cyclist and as a dad. So I'm wearing my Whoop. I can see how well I'm doing. It's just the worst ad of all time. I don't need to track my performance as a dad. canal, definitely in the canal. So Lily, why the hell are you wearing that?
I could do an entire episode of talking about this because I had like the same opinion until I started using it. And then I was like, I lost my charger for it for like under a week because it was in my thing of Halloween costumes, but I could not find it for under a week. And I was like freaking out for that whole time because I didn't have my Whoop. It was dead. I was like borrowing people's chargers and stuff. And it's honestly just because it's very addictive to like have consistent metrics for you. You don't have to take it off ever. You charge it while wearing it.
It's gamifying your health, basically.
There's like literally not even any games. I mean, I guess there is. Like you could see like how you're doing like compared to other like people in Toronto or whatever, like compared to yourself. But it's just like having like access to constant data on yourself. Like the sleep metrics for me are the biggest thing. It's so interesting. And just like seeing like, oh, I feel really tired. And then I'll look and it'll be like, your recovery is like this low. And I'll be like, oh, that's justified. I am tired. I don't know. It's something about it. Just like the way that they go so into detail is just like, I can't stop looking. I'm not selling it very well, but
I find that whole thing very anxiety inducing personally. The constant data about yourself, it's just it's a rabbit hole of what's wrong with me, basically.
Yeah, and I could see that. Like, and I mean, aesthetically, does this look good? It's a black band. It's better than a watch, in my opinion. I've had watches.
Gonna have to disagree.
It's better than a smartwatch.
It's more so there's no screen on it. It's just a little band. Do I wear it when I'm like, I don't know. I haven't really been going out because of COVID, but if I'm going to be dressing up, it's going to be a question. Their newest one, the Whoop 4.0, that was just released. They've started to integrate like underwear that you can put your Whoop into so that presumably people can wear it without having to have the band on. I think that's the concept.
But you're wearing it down there.
It's like around your waistband, sort of.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, or they're for the like they have like bras that you can put it in the side and stuff, which is, I mean, it's like that's how addictive it is. It's just.
But I have an idea to make the Whoop look better because that, as you say, it's just like a black bracelet or band. Make it yellow and write "Live Strong" on it.
I would not be surprised if they do a collaboration. They have one with EF already, so
that might be the way to get my dumb brain to accept that Whoop is cool is to make it yellow and write "Live Strong." Warren, you had something you wanted to say.
We forgot to warn our listeners that apparently this episode is brought to you by Whoop because that was like the closest thing we've had to infomercial in this show yet. So Whoop, hit us up, send us some money. We just gave you a free ad. You sponsor everything else. Why not us?
Also, it helps me be a good dad to my Ted King's children.
Okay, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Bruno Langlois, for joining the podcast this week. We have lots of other exciting interviews coming up in the next few weeks. So make sure to follow us on Instagram at cyclingfashionweek to hear all about it. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast. Tell your friends about it. And we will be back in a few weeks with more Cycling Fashion Week content. Thanks, everyone. Take care.